So installing and configuring the MallinCam software, there's different software for the different cameras. We're going to go through them a little bit so you can get to see which ones are for what. There was also a couple of iterations of software that we kind of developed and then tossed out the window because they weren't really useful. We were duplicating things, so you'll see that too. But the important thing to note is that when you're installing software on Windows, Windows also does a couple of weird things for you. So we're going to kind of skip through those, and not skip through them, but go through those and see some of the stuff that you could run into. Anybody else need water or something here before we toss the bottles in the crowd?
Okay.
Super simple. That's yeah. Get a hose. Okay, so what version? Now, the software that we're talking about here is not for the imager, so not the SSI, not the Universe. Okay? These are for the MallinCam video cameras. They are different, non-imagers, video cameras. So there's three main lines of software that we've got at this point. The first one is for the micro. Now, the micro CPU doesn't understand a lot of commands. It's a very basic little CPU, and what you've got is menu control, which means that by running the micro software, all you can do is open the menu, move it up, move it down, move it left, move it right, and select options. That's as far as the CPU in the micro deals with. It doesn't handle any other commands. We tried. CPU's not smart enough. The second one is for the Junior Pro PC, or the Junior Pro. Now, you'll understand that as we go through these, the Junior Pro, the Junior Pro PC, the Control, the Extreme, the basics are the same. And tomorrow, if we do the presentation, or when we do the presentation on the actual software and we go through all the features, they apply to all of them to a certain extent. Give or take one or two little settings or one or two features that either exist or don't exist, depending on the model of the camera. Now, there's three different types of files you're going to find. You're going to find an MSI file, you're going to find a zip file, or a RAR file. What's a zip, what's a RAR, what's an MSI? Well, a zip file is just a compressed file. I take something, I compress it to make it smaller so I can send it over the internet quickly. A RAR file is the same thing, it's just a different format. So a lot of people go, well, I know what a zip is, what's a RAR? Do I run that? It's just a compressed file. So just like you would decompress a zip file, you would decompress a RAR file. There are different tools that are available for free, and some that you buy that you can do this. MSIs are Microsoft installation packages. Everybody's always used to seeing setup.exe. Well, guess what? You can do something.msi. It installs as well. Same thing. So if you do download one of the packages and expand it and you get this MSI file, don't panic. It's an installer file. So there's the MallinCam Control X, which the current version right now is 2.8. There's the MallinCam Controller M Control Junior Pro PC. Junior Pro and the Junior Pro PC versions are for the same camera with different functionality. In actual fact, they kind of do the same thing. We just did the layout a little different. So technically we could toss one out because they're exactly the same software. We just, let's look at it this way. Let's change the layout and look like that. It does the same thing. And then there's obviously the Extreme. The Extreme has everything, right? That's the big camera and it does all the stuff. So we go back to Micro EX. Basic functionality, you can control the menu only. You extract the program into a single folder. So when you get the file, it's a RAR file. When you extract the file, what you get is something called mcontrolled micro.exe. That's it. There's no install, there's no setup, there's nothing. So create yourself a folder, mcontrolled micro, and extract the file, that executable, and put it in there. Create yourself a shortcut. How do you do a shortcut? You right-click on the actual file, the exe, and you choose Create Shortcut. Right down here, Create Shortcut. In Windows you can do this. Anytime you have an executable on your disk, you want to have a shortcut. If you right click on the name of the executable, one of the options is Create Shortcut. Then you drag your shortcut and drop it to your desktop. Now you've got this shortcut to mcontrol.exe. Every time you run it, it starts the software. No install, nothing fancy. Very basic there. There's no fancy stuff to play with. Now, when you start the mcontrol, the micro, it's going to come up looking like this. You drop this box down and you're going to get COM ports. what's a COM port? And then people go, well, there's a COM setting in the menu of the camera. Two different things, okay? This is important to note. People always go, well, the camera says 1, so I need to select 1 here. Not the same thing. This is the COM port on the computer. This is the port that the computer is saying, where am I talking? Okay, if I've got 5 different connections, named 1 through 5, which one's connected to that camera? Well, number 3 is. What you see in the actual camera, when you go to one of the settings in the micro, is it says COM with 2 M's. That's for communications. The reason is that these cameras are RS-485, and we'll get into another presentation on that, but just to basically say, RS-485 supports multiple devices on one wire, each with a different address. That's what that is. So the COM1 in the camera is not this. The COM1 in the camera is communication device 1, not COM port 1. So don't mix that up. If it says 1 in the camera, doesn't mean you choose 1 here. The important thing to note is the software only talks to communication device 1. So people go, well, I've got COM4 on my computer, so I'm going to set this to COM4, and then I go in here and I change this to 4. Nothing works. I got the right COM port, how come? Because the software talks to communication device number 1. So, in a camera, when you go to the menu, don't change it. Leave it on 1. Ignore that. It's completely useless to you. This is the one that's important. You click connect. Why do I click connect? Well, if I just choose the COM port and I choose the wrong COM port, I'm going to get an error. If I click connect and I've chosen the wrong COM port, I will also get an error, but I did the error. I pressed the button. Okay? So you click connect, the button turns green, and it changes to disconnect, saying when the next time you press it, it's going to be a disconnect. You're now talking to the camera. This is basically what it says here. You click the center button, it opens the on-screen menu. You go up, down, left, and right, and it goes up and down, left, and right through the different menu options. And when you find an option you want to change, you click the button in the middle, and it selects that option. And again, you keep going through. So it's the same as the back buttons on the camera, right? The left, right, top, and bottom, and the middle select button. Exactly the same thing. The added feature that I've put is once you've clicked this menu button once, you can now hit the arrow keys on your keyboard and go up, down, left, right, and hit the enter key to select the button, so you don't have to keep doing the mouse. You can start moving up and down, left and right through the menus a lot quicker as you get used to it. Okay, so this is what we got here. We've put that in there. The color picker. People go, how do I change the color? Click on the camera. This comes up. Choose the color you want. You don't like this color? Go to custom color. And there's a huge palette there, and you can adjust the intensity of the color. You can get really, really fancy with the color you want. Now, a lot of people go a little bit fancier and they say, I'm going to go and find that there's this file that gets created on my disk with the software called config.ini, and look, it says color aqua. I want it to be purple. So they go in here and they type purple, and the software says, what are you talking about, purple? Because purple may not be what this is called. This could be called mauve. So this file, don't edit it. People think, oh, I'm going to do that, and it'll make it quicker. Just go in the color picker. Once you've chosen your color, you can look at the file, and sometimes what you're going to get here is a number. Remember how I said you do custom colors? When you click on here, you get this nice big palette of all kinds of colors. It's like a painter's brush. If you pick a color that has a predefined value to Windows, the only way for Windows to know is how much red, how much green, and how much blue do I mix together. And that's why what you're going to get here is 3 numbers instead of a name. Okay? So you might see that. So, again, not manually entering the color in the config file. I have people asking me this all the time. Well, how come my color's not working? Well, what did you do? Well, I wanted black, so I chose black. Well, you typed black in the file. Pick it from the picker. Okay? Now, you don't have to save your configuration, by the way. Every time you close the software, the last thing you chose, the last color you chose, and the last COM port you chose will get saved automatically. So the next time you start it up, I want orange today. Change it to orange, you close it, the next time you open it up, it'll be orange. You want it COM7, you change it to COM7, and you close the software and reopen it, it'll remember COM7. We get into COM ports in another presentation, because we all know what happens with USB to serial adapters, and you move them around, and the next thing you know, my COM port's not there anymore. Why am I up to COM9 when I wanted 2? Well, that's another presentation. Okay? Also remember, computers start counting at 0, not 1. So you chose COM1. if you read this config file, it says 0. Because COM1 is port 0. COM2 is port 1. Right? Computer people are weird like that. So that was the micro. Pretty basic. Doesn't do a lot. I went into the explanation of the software just because it's so small. This one here, we're not going to go into a lot of the software usage, but we will look at the configuration to get the thing running. So the Junior Pro PC, again, what you get is a zip file, you extract it, and there's that little MSI file. You double click it, you run it like you would setup.exe. It installs the software. The first thing it's going to ask you is, do you want to do this? Yes, click next. The next question is important specifically for people using Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8. Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8 have added a lot of security features. That means that just by default, you may not have the correct permissions in the correct folders to create folders and to write software. It asks you, do you want it for just me or everyone? Guess what? If you choose just me and something goes wrong in your configuration of your Windows and some security rights get messed up, you may not be able to run the software. Always choose everyone. What you're telling Windows is, when you install this software, make sure that no matter who uses the computer, the software is going to work. It's a security feature. When you get into really secure environments, you may want to install software using the Just Me, that if you share your computer with your spouse, your kids, whatever, they won't see the shortcuts. They won't be able to run the program. Don't bother with that. It's more hassle than it's worth. Change this to everyone. Okay? Step number 1. That's the key right there. A lot of people forget that. They just skip right through it. We're all used to the setup. Oh, next, next, next. We're done. Just a little switch there. Once it's installed, the shortcut will be placed on the desktop. You're also going to have a group in your Start menu, or if you have Windows 8, somewhere in that god-awful tile interface that they've created. Anyways, so you get the shortcut, you click on the shortcut, and the first thing you're going to get is this, which is the basic screen. It gets you going quickly. The first thing you do is not go and play in advanced and start clicking these buttons. No, 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 no. You immediately go to the Config tab, because now you've got to tell your software what camera you have, whether it's a color or black and white camera, because it makes a difference to the software, right? I can't allow you to change the color settings and send color settings to a camera that's black and white. The camera's going to go, what am I going to do with this? You got to choose that. Then there's a couple of other things. Obviously the COM port. Remember, this is the COM port, the port on the computer, right? Has nothing to do with devices up there. Once you've chosen the COM port, you've chosen your camera type, color or black and white, you hit this button, this save button, not load save down here. This is presets. This is save software configuration. You're now saying the next time I start the software, you know what kind of camera I have, and you know the COM port I'm going to use. There's a couple of other options here that also work with the save configuration, like tooltips. Everybody know what a tooltip is? No? You move your mouse over a feature in the other screen in advance, for example, and when you put your mouse over one of the features, you get a little pop-up bubble that describes what the feature is. That's a tooltip. By default, it's on. Once you get to know the camera, they get annoying. So you disable tooltips, save it. It won't come back and bug you again. But you can always turn it back on later. Another one is if you like the night vision red look or the night vision blue look, that's the color. You can save that there. I didn't do the fancy color picker here because who needs night vision with MallinCams? And again, you keep saving your configuration. You can do all your settings and hit save once, or you can do change one setting, save it, come back the next day, change something else and save it. But remember that when you make a change here, if you want it to be remembered, you got to hit that save button. The disable safety lock we'll get into when we actually talk about the software tomorrow and the features, because it is important to note. Okay? So again, that'll be remembered next time you start the software. The next thing you want to do is go to the video tab. Because now you've got, I want to save pictures and save videos. And this one is really confusing because people don't quite understand the whole point here. What you're trying to do is you're trying to set up a name. And people go, okay, I'm going to do M3. So I type M3 in here. Okay, so when you save your picture or your video, it's going to be called M3. Then you change targets and you forget to change the name, and you hit save. You just overwrote M3 with your new whatever you're looking at. Don't use object names. use a generic name. Call it MallinCam Junior Pro. Call it Picture. The software will add the year, month, date, hour, minute, second, millisecond to the file name. So what you're going to end up getting is you're going to end up getting MallinCam Junior Pro, a big T, year, month, date, a big H, hour, minute, second, millisecond. You know exactly when your pictures were taken. Okay? So those of you who do astrometry, so asteroid, watching them go by, you need to know exactly when. You sync your computer up with the NRC time online. When you're saving your images, they're going to be saved down to the millisecond. The exact millisecond on this date and time is when I took that picture.
Is it the middle of the exposure, the beginning of the exposure, the end of the exposure?
We calculated it out, and I had to calculate how long it took the camera to generate the exposure. So it's not the middle of the exposure, it's the minute the frame is complete.
Okay.
Because once the frame is complete, then it shows it to you. Let's say you've got a 10-second exposure, okay? So it's going to accumulate for 10 seconds. When it builds that image, if your object is streaking across the sky fast enough that you're going to get a blur, well, you're going to see the blur. It's going to be at the end of the blur.
Okay.
Because it's when the frame is complete. If it's fast enough, though, you won't get the blur. Again, it's once the frame is complete. That's when it's being saved. So I had to calculate what's the delay time for the software and what's the delay time for the disk write to get the right millisecond down. Thanks to Michael.
Yay.
Now, don't put an extension. Yeah, but it's a JPEG. No, the software will do it. Okay? Just put a name. Find a folder for your video. So in my case here, I put under videos, my videos, captures, I usually put just extreme because I've got the extreme. And that's it. I never change it. I may change the folder. I may put a subfolder like I'm going to put Johnstown 2014. And I know that's where I took all these pictures. But then I'll have just date and times. If I don't know what I'm looking at, I can use the text feature. We all know about the text feature in the MallinCam. And we can talk about that tomorrow in the features. But you can add text to your image if you want. If you really want to get fancy, you can create subfolders for every image. Or for any image type. You know, I want 15 M3s and 25, you know, M27s, whatever. You can do that too. You have to keep going in here and changing all this stuff. So, videos. Oops. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's talk about that. Oh, there it is. So, videos and pictures, same thing, right? One for video, one for picture, because they're two different things. You may want to put them all in the same folder. That's for you to decide. Or you may want to put them in separate folders. You usually put videos in one because you're going to run them through Registacks, pictures in another because you're going to stack them later on. Exact same process. Find the folder, give it a name, not the object you're looking at, because it will tag the date and time to the end of the file name. Don't put the extension. The software will handle the extensions because the software can support JPEG, it supports bitmap, it supports TIFF for pictures, it supports AVI or MPEG for video. And depending on what you select, it'll add that too afterwards. Okay? Remember where you put your pictures. I lost my pictures. All that work. Remember where they went. Okay? Now, they automatically append date and time down to the 100th of a second. Here we've got AVI, MPEG. This will automatically be done. Pay attention to your folder. Main cost of lost images is I don't know where I put them anymore. They're gone. And again, here's the format, right? You get whatever you called it. So I called it extreme. You get year, month, date, T, hour, minute, second, millisecond. Dot, whatever you've chosen as a format. I'm going to put that in there. And you can see some examples right here of the file names. They look a little weird, but now that you know how to read them, it's pretty simple, right? 2014, June 23rd at 12:25:32 and 9:2. Not long enough, but there you go. That's the file name setup. Back to the config. Save it. Because the next time you start the software, if you didn't, that video tab with those paths, they're going to be gone. You won't have to do them again. So that's the key there too. Back there, save the config. Now, the image size. If you don't have version 2.8, if you have version 2.5, you don't have this, you don't have the histogram. 2.7, I added the histogram. 2.8, I added the size. You can change the size. This one is different. Remember those presets at the beginning where we said deep sky, planet, lunar, and stuff? A lot of people were saying when I do video for planets, I use 640 by 480, but when I do pictures of deep sky, I like 720 by 480. So this setting here will not be saved in the config tab. This will be saved with presets. And we're going to get into more detail about presets tomorrow, but the presets is basically, you're going to have one called deep sky, you're going to have one called planetary, one called lunar. Choose the one you want, save it in deep sky. When you go into planets and you change this, save it into planets. So the next time you do a deep sky object, it'll change it to the format you like. The next time you go a planet, it'll change it to the format you like. So that's what this one's tied to. It'll be a little more clear tomorrow when we really get into how preset files work. And here we talk about it right here where you hit save, and these are the MC files that I've created. All these config files, by the way, are readable in text format. Okay? You can look at them if you want. Don't change the contents of them, especially not the MC files. You'll see they're very long and convoluted, a lot of numbers and weird things in there. Oh, that's another thing. People here use the MallinCam software? Yes? The config files are compatible. Bill and I had a long chat about this before we created the software, and we made sure that the files are compatible. So if today you use the MallinCam software, tomorrow you want to use my software, and you've already got your config files the way you like them, you can read his config files into my software and my config files into his software, and they're compatible with each other. That makes it easier just to do stuff like that. Alright, the extreme. Same idea. You extract the file, you get an MSI, you do the install. Remember the magic. Install for everyone. Exactly the same reason. And this is going to get repetitive. We do the same thing. Set up your stuff. Save your config. Right? All the same settings again, same idea. Same thing. Your path, remember? Pictures and videos, same idea. You put the name of you put a name, and you don't put extensions, it'll add the date and the time. So I think I've repeated some of these slides here. Yeah, again, same date and time stuff. So these are the same thing. Save your config stuff. This works exactly the same way. So whether you've got the Junior Pro or the Extreme, it's exactly the same thing. You learn the software once, it works. And we go through that again. We do, again, the same preset files. That's pretty well what you need to do to get it working. Yeah.
The presets, what are they normally set to?
So there are default presets that what I did is when I created the software, if you understand how the MallinCam works, the MallinCam, you can't come up with a preset list of, okay, you're going to put AJC to this, and you're going to put VLC to that, and da-da-da-da. It depends on your scope, your object, your sky conditions, your location. It depends on a bunch of stuff. So what I did is I went out to my local dark site. It's not that dark, but it's okay, farm field. I had an 8-inch Schmidt, and I did, okay, what's a nice starting point for deep sky? It's about like this. Looks good on mice. There you go. I'm saving that. What's a good one for planetary? What's a good one for lunar? I did that to begin with. So you've got basic files there that are going to start you. It's not a press the button, it's going to work for everybody. It's going to get you going, but you really have to tweak for your setup. What you're going to find is, even though sky conditions change, location change, and objects change, deep sky, you can usually get a good set of configs that'll get you going in just about any configuration, or sorry, in any setting for your scope, for your equipment. Same thing with planets, same thing with all the other settings. So we've got different setting files. We've got planets, moon, solar, deep sky, planets, moon, solar, deep sky, and a user-defined button for whatever else you want. Now, those are the quick buttons at the beginning of the screen. Let's go back to the beginning here. Just get to one of the slides, you'll see. See these here? Deep, planet, moon, solar, user-defined. All right. In the software itself, or in the folder, you'll see there's one called deepsky.mc, one called planet.mc, moon.mc. Anyways, you can also have other ones. You can call them anything you want when you save them down here. You can call them, I don't know, messiers. NGCs. These are just quick buttons, right? When I hit moon, it's going to load the one called moon. When I hit deep sky, it's going to load the one called deep sky. There's one more that's not listed here. It's called default. That's the one that the software starts with. So if you always wanted to start in deep sky mode, load up deep sky and then save it over the one called default. And that's what it's going to start at. Plain and simple. If you want to do Messier's and you only do certain settings for Messier's, you can instead press the button. You can go down here and say load and find the one called Messier's. You do MGCs, you got a different set of settings. Again, the same thing. You can have as many of these MC files as you want. It's up to you to decide how you want to use the software. Yep.
First time I used my camera, which was about 2 weeks ago, and I got the COM port and I got all those error things you said, then I got the right one.
Yes.
I then proceeded to pull it out without realizing what I was doing when I finished, and when I went back the next time, of course, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I went right through them until I got it, but I got a different number.
Yeah. So we're going to do...
Is that still okay though? Because it was
yeah.
still... The green light came back.
We're going to do a presentation on USB,
right.
serial, and the quirks about USB. And that one we're going to talk about why you get different COM port numbers and how to avoid that.
So as long as the green light came up there, I'm still working all right, okay? Is that correct?
The key there is, and that's the other thing too, you want to make sure your camera works. Yeah. In the advanced button, there's one here that says color box.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Get the color box. Do you get the color bars?
No, it's okay.
It's talking. Yeah. Do you not get the color bars? Right. Don't press any other buttons. It's not talking. It's not talking.
Right, okay.
So we're going to talk about, in the USB presentation, we're going to talk about how do you find that COM port so you're correct every single time and you don't have to guess.
Right.
I'll show you exactly where you find it and exactly how you can always get the right COM port all the time. Good?
Good, thank you.
So that's the basics of getting this thing running.
So Stefan, if you had certain settings you liked for individual deep sky objects, you can just do presets for actual objects, right?
Sure, you know, M27, I always do like this. You could call a preset M27. The next time you go to M27, you go load M27. Load all your settings in for that object. You can do that too. You'll see though that once you get going, when we do the full presentation on the software and the features, it's a lot easier just to load one preset for all deep skies, because technically there's only one or two things you're going to tweak. Once you get to know this thing, it's very little you change. All those buttons, they drop down to all of a sudden to two little things that you play with. And the rest seems like, oh, it's so easy after that. At first you're going, oh my god, what do I do with all this stuff? Don't worry about it. When we do the full talk tomorrow, you'll get to see all this stuff. Other questions?